Welcome to this week's CHN Insiders podcast. I'm Mike McMahon. Adam Wonen is on assignment this week, so we have a different type of show coming at you. In a little bit, I am going to be joined by the Hockey's Commissioner, Steve Metcalf, who actually joined me at the first intermission of the Merrimack BU broadcast on Saturday night. We're going to play back that interview. He talks about the Spengler Cup. He's also the GM, or as he said he likes to call himself, the sporting director of the Spengler Cup team, the U.S. Collegiate Selects, that are going to play over in Europe in December. Plus, we talk some Hockey East issues to start the year, so that'll be coming up later in the show. But we're going to start this week with just running down the news, running down some topics that are going around the college hockey world, and I am going to bring in a very special guest, my son, Tyler McMahon, to help us run through that. Tyler and I do a separate podcast that we call the College Hockey Rundown. We do that on the side every week. It's a project that he wanted to start up, and we've been doing it now since the start of the year. It's been a lot of fun to talk college hockey with him. He's a 15-year-old high school student / hockey player, but it's been fun, him and I getting to sit down and spend some time together and talk college hockey. So he's going to join us, and we're going to run down the topics of the week. You'll get a kind of a taste of the College Hockey Rundown. You can also subscribe to that show if you wanted to by going to Apple Podcast or Spotify or wherever and just searching College Hockey Rundown. You'll be able to find that show, and you can subscribe to it there. So we're going to start with that, and then in a little bit, Steve is going to join us as well. But let's start with the rundown. Tyler, what do we got first?
Michigan State swept Penn State last weekend, and the Spartans have won 7 games in a row after losing on opening night to New Hampshire. Is Michigan State the best team in the country?
They are right now, yeah, at least from what I've seen. They are definitely the best team in the country right now. Will they be in March? Who knows? Potentially. I mean, they could be. They're definitely in that short list, I think, for me. But, yeah, no, I think from what I've seen with my own eyes, they're the best team I've seen in the country so far this year. And on top of that, talking to several coaches that have already played them at this point, they have all agreed. Like I had one coach last week say to me, they're not just the best team in the country. I don't know that the gap is all that close between them and number 2. So that, to me, kind of confirms what I've seen with my own eyes that Michigan State is the best team in the country. That was a pretty impressive sweep over Penn State, especially just like the emotions of it. Gavin McKenna was down to Michigan State and Penn State. He chose Penn State. They come into town last weekend. You've got a series against them. There was a lot of hoopla around that series, a lot of attention on that series from media people, not just myself, but national NHL media because of the NHL implications of it. I think they're the best team in the country for sure. One thing, it's interesting. I wanted to bring this up. One thing, and I wrote about it this week, and I know Adam Wonen at College Hockey News wrote about it similarly this week as well. A lot of people did, coming off of the McKenna, Michigan State stuff. But I'm starting to wonder, like, do you remember a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about McKenna in the draft, and I forget if it was a mailbag question or if we were doing the rundown at that point, but I had said I wasn't ready to say that he's not the number 1 pick?
Yes, I do remember that.
Yeah, like 3 or 4 weeks ago. So I'm still not ready to say that he's not the number 1 pick entirely. Like I think there's still a 95% chance that he's the number 1 pick, but I'm starting to wonder, like, just based on the start that he's had, which has been very good. Not great, but very good.
Yeah.
NHL teams don't usually draft for need because it's just the development path is so long for a lot of these players. But I wonder, and there's one specific team that I wonder about really, and they might not even end up with the number 1 pick because they're playing pretty well. But a team like San Jose, who already drafted Macklin Celebrini, Will Smith, and Michael Misa this past year. Like they have 3 stud forwards that are all 20 or under. I think Smith is 20 years old. Is he 20 or 21? Either way, he's 20 or 21. Celebrini's 19 or 20, and Misa's 18. He hasn't even turned 19 yet, I don't think. Or maybe he did. Either way, they have 3 really stud forwards who are 21 years old or under, and only 1 defenseman. Like, Dickinson's the only defenseman they have that I would put into that category. So I wonder if it were San Jose, that ends up with the number 1 pick, would they be tempted to take Keaton Verhoff from North Dakota? Are they the one team that might be tempted to go with the 17-year-old, look to be like just stud right shot defenseman where they already have those 3 forwards? I would have said, and this is what I wrote in the newsletter this week, but here's how I would put it with you too. I had said about 3 weeks ago, he's still the number 1 pick. I don't care who has the pick. He's the number 1 pick. He's just that type of talent. And I still think that's true for almost every team. And there might be other teams like San Jose that are in that similar position. San Jose just stands out to me because they've drafted so high for the last number of years, and that it's really, with the exception of Sam Dickinson, have only taken forwards. They might be the one team that looks at it and goes, we have our 3 all-star level forwards already. We got Sam Dickinson on the back end, but you build things from the net out. Are we tempted to go with the defenseman instead? And I think that would be justified. Like, McKenna, again, has been very good. I don't think at this point, at the same age, that he has been as good as Macklin Celebrini. Celebrini was better in college through the first month. McKenna might be by the end of the year. Celebrini was better at this point. You saw the type of impact that Celebrini made at the NHL level last year, as opposed to somebody like Connor Bedard, who made an impact, but it wasn't nearly as big as the impact Celebrini made the year after, in my opinion. So that's where, I think McKenna, who only has 3 5-on-5 points. He's got 14 points. Only 3 of them have come at 5-on-5. 4 of them are technically even strength, but one of them is 4-on-4. And I'm not counting that because, again, 4-on-4, there's a lot more open ice. There's a lot more open space. Where I think he's been challenged is along the wall, specifically as a winger. And he's got 3 points in 12 games at 5-on-5. Like, that's a concern. And I think that NHL scouts are starting to notice that. There were scouts that were at that Michigan State-Penn State series over the weekend who, had said that he really needs to improve. He really needs to get stronger. He really needs to improve his game off the puck. All very true. But you're starting to hear more and more chatter about, I think he's the number 1 pick, but is he a lock? I think he was a lock in the summer. Although I will say, I wrote this back in July 15th. I had an NHL scout that I had a conversation with who works for a team, didn't want to be named, who had said, you know what, like, keep an eye on Verhoff because I might go with Keaton Verhoff, especially if he gets into the NCHC and makes a big impact and McKenna struggles a little bit in the Big Ten. And, Verhoff has had a nice start as well. He hasn't, he's got 6 points in 10 games. I think he's got 4 goals. He's also just 17 years old. He turned 17 in June. He's a June 08. And McKenna's an 07 who's going to be 18. He's 17 right now. He's going to be 18 in December. So Verhoff is 9 months younger than McKenna. I would say playing in a more difficult league, at least for younger players. Like the Big Ten might have more skill overall. I think the NCHC is a more difficult league to play in as a younger player just because it's a little more rugged. It's a little bigger. So maybe it's just the Sharks that would entertain not taking Gavin McKenna number 1, but it's interesting because I feel like a month ago when we talked about it, Ty, I would have said 100% McKenna goes 1. It doesn't matter who has that pick. Now, I still think it's 95% chance he goes number 1, but I think are there some teams that may look at specifically Verhoff as the big right shot defenseman? You just can't find really good right shot defensemen. They're worth their weight in gold. They're really hard to find, and he's one. So if you're a team that has good forward depth in terms of prospects or players under 25, let's say under 23, would you entertain taking the defenseman over the forward? I think I would. Like if I were San Jose right now, I might lean Verhoff over McKenna because I know I've got Celebrini, who's going to be a stud. I know I've got Will Smith, who's going to be a stud, perennial all-star. And I know I have Michael Misa, who, again, perennial stud, going to be an all-star. Now, could you use a 4th guy? Like, yeah, it'd be nice to have, 2 lines with 2 of those guys on each. But, I don't know. I just feel like if you want to balance things out, I might be tempted to take the defenseman there. So it's interesting. But, yeah, in terms of just Michigan State overall, Michigan State beat Penn State twice. They have their only losses to UNH on opening night, and it was at the last second. So Michigan State's the best team in the country. Yes, they're the best team in the country.
I noticed when you were talking, you have some glitter on your face.
I have glitter on my face?
Yeah, I think it might be from the tree.
Oh.
I couldn't help but notice you were sparkling
like,
a little bit in the light.
Yeah, it's only November 11th. Well, I shouldn't say we, because you and I had nothing to do with it, but
Mom bought a Grinch Christmas tree.
Yeah, it's
that
pretty
is
cool.
up in our
She
dining
put it
room
up today.
now.
I like it.
Yeah,
It's kind of cool.
yeah. It's green. It's like a light green. It's not like the.
It's from the movie.
I know.
Yeah.
But I just wasn't expecting it to be like Grinch green, as we might call it. It's the color of I would just expect it to be like a normal.
Watch the movie. That's
I've
what it
watched
looks
the movie many
like.
times.
So, what do we got next?
Denver picked up an impressive sweep as well, beating Western Michigan in back-to-back games on the road. Are the Pioneers the best team in the NCHC?
I would say yes to that too. Again, at least right now, the thing with Denver. So Denver's interesting to me because I feel like they've got so many new players. You would think they might have some ups and downs early, and it would take them some time to figure things out. And they are kind of going through that right now. But the one thing with Denver that stands out right away is I think they've got their goaltender, which is huge. But Quentin Miller has been really good, and I think he's going to get better. He was really good over the weekend in that sweep of Western Michigan. But I think Denver, and we've seen this from Denver before, I think you're going to see Denver trend upwards over the course of the year. Like if you look at their season on a graph, I would say that they had steady upward progression from October through March. That's just usually what you get from them anyway. But even more so this year because they had to replace their goaltender. They had to replace some key players that had been there for a while, right? Like guys like Devine that had played there for a long, long time. They needed to figure out ways to replace those guys. They needed to figure out ways. And they, unlike some of the other schools, other programs that generally rely on high-end 18-year-olds and only play a year or two, they had some guys that were 3 or 4 year players that all have aged out or graduated, is the better way to put it, over the last couple of years, and they needed to figure out ways to replace all those guys. And they're led by a lot of freshmen, like Caswell, Jake Fisher's a sophomore, Reeder's a sophomore, Eric Jameson's a freshman defenseman. So there's a lot of sophomores. Burrows is another one. A lot of sophomores and freshmen that are leading the way for them, and some that I think are going to get better as the year goes on. Like I think Christian Epperson is going to take a big step as the year progresses. He's been okay to start the year. I think he'll be better as the year goes. But their best freshman, I would argue, has probably been Quentin Miller, the goaltender, who's really stepped in and completely filled the role that you weren't sure what that was going to look like at the beginning of the year. And I don't even know that they were either because they gave Paxton Geisel a couple of games at the beginning of the year, and he looked pretty good too. Like he wasn't bad, but they needed to figure out who was going to replace Matt Davis, and so far it's been Miller, and he's looked really good doing it. But this is a team that had to replace Jack Devine, Aiden Thompson, Zeev Bouillon, Carter King, all those guys either graduated or signed at the end of last year, along with Matt Davis, who was their goaltender from a year ago. So they had a lot to replace. They're finding ways to do it, and they're playing really well. Even in some of those losses, they lost to Anchorage. They completely outplayed Anchorage in that game. The loss to UNH, I thought they outplayed UNH, just lost on the last second goal. The only loss that was really a bad one was the one to Lindenwood. That was more of a 50-50 game that they lost. Credit to Lindenwood there, of course. But they're a team that I think is going to continue to trend upwards, too, over the course of the year because of who they have as a coach. So that is, I would say yes. I would say that they, right now, look like the best team in the NCHC. I would have said coming into the year that it was Western and maybe North Dakota with Denver third. But right now, Denver, to me, looks like the best team in the league. Yeah.
BU seemed to get back on track with the sweep over Merrimack, but the Terriers still needed to rally on Friday night to win in overtime and almost gave away a 3-0 lead on Saturday, winning 5-4. Where do you think BU needs to improve the most?
Well, I'll start with you on this one. I don't do that very often, but you saw both those games. What did you see from BU?
I did.
Let's see if we agree here.
So one thing I noticed, especially on Saturday, you're playing multiple back-to-back games in a year, but they had very minimal physical guys.
They're not a real physical team.
Yeah. And they had good puck movement in the O-zone, the offensive zone. Didn't get a ton of shots on goal. They got less than I would expect. More guys obviously had more shots than others, but they had a pretty good forecheck game. But I would say they just have to be more physical on the puck and win more battles in the corner.
And I think what's going to help them is it sounds like they're going to get Cole Eiserman back this week, which
he's obviously also a big impact player for them.
Yeah,
too,
so that's going to help. I actually think, I'll be honest with you, I think if they can get Nick Rukanakis back, who sounds like he might be close to getting back too. I don't know when, if it'll be this week or next week, but I think he's trending in the right direction towards them getting him back soon. He's not going to be a guy that puts up a ton on the score sheet. He only had 5 assists last year as a freshman, but he's one of those identity guys that I think can set a tone for his team. And he's older. For a team that's really young, I know he's a sophomore, but he's an 03, so he's one of the older players on that team, and he's just such an identity guy, just such a glue guy. He's going to play in the bottom 6, but he's going to do everything you need him to do to help win a game, whether it's, like you said, be physical with somebody, lay a hit, block a shot, whatever it takes, he's going to do it.
I noticed they did a really good job at blocking shots. They blocked a lot of shots over the weekend against Merrimack.
They did, I think, especially on Saturday, more so
Saturday.
than Friday. What I noticed, though, the biggest thing with BU is they're a mess in the D zone. At least on Friday night, they're just so sloppy in the D zone coming out of their own end. They didn't transition well. I mean, they did. I shouldn't say that. They transitioned really well at times. When they struggled, they transitioned really poorly. Turned the puck over at the defensive blue line a couple of times. Led to I think at least one of the Merrimack goals on Friday was a turnover at the red line that was just real sloppy, and then didn't back check after the turnover. So they were just really bad in their own end, really, really bad in their own end on Friday for long, long stretches, which is why Merrimack had a lead in that game, arguably should have won the game. And then Saturday, they had the 3-0 lead, and they, again, started to get a little loose with the puck. Didn't always, and I know I harp on this a lot, but just didn't make the simple play. Tried to make flashy plays between the blue lines, and then you turn pucks over, and all of a sudden it's coming right back at you. So I think if they clean up their D zone, they're going to be, they'll start winning a lot more games, and not with such stress, because those were 2 pretty stressful games that they won over the weekend, having to come from behind and almost blowing a lead.
Especially being up 5-2, and then Merrimack scoring 2 quick ones, making it 5-4.
So, and that's the thing, and I'll say too, at least in the D zone, Yegorov, overall through the first few weeks has not been great to start the year, but I do kind of feel bad for him too, because some of the play in front of him in the defensive end has just been terrible. It's been so bad. I can't put it all on the goaltender, but he hasn't been great. Last year, I think he was. I'd put it like this: I think last year he was covering for some of their mistakes defensively, and this year he is not. So that they need him to get back to the point where he can cover up for those defensive mistakes.
They almost lost him in the game on Saturday.
Yeah, that was I forgot about that.
That was weird.
They called him for a headbutting and gave him a major and a disqualification. It wasn't a headbutt, though.
He was getting poked at after a whistle.
Yep.
He kind of chest bumped
the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we saw the replay on the broadcast pretty quickly.
They called him for a headbutt. Almost gave him a 5-minute major misconduct.
Game DQ, which comes with an automatic 1-game suspension.
Oh, it does?
It does. DQ is different than a misconduct.
Oh.
But yeah, I didn't think that was a headbutt.
I was standing next to the Merrimack video guys, I think at the time, up in the press box.
Oh, okay.
And even they were surprised with that call.
Yeah, it was not a headbutt. It was a chest bump. And they reviewed it, they corrected it. He stayed in the game. They gave him a roughing minor, which is all it needed to be. So.
Yeah, if there's one guy on BU I would like to see be more physical, only because of his size. I forget his first name, but he's number 15, Amico.
Oh, okay, Carter.
Yeah,
Carter Amico.
Yeah, Carter Amico. He's really big.
6'5" defenseman. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a Flyers draft pick, I believe.
Yeah, he didn't use the body as much as I would expect him to, being that big.
Yeah, and I've seen him play a lot even when he was younger, and he's local. I think he's from Maine. But he's really good with his reach. Like, he uses his reach really well.
Yeah.
Really defends well with his stick. I would agree with you, though. Like, because they're so young, they do have some size, but again, like, size isn't always about height. Like, it's about height and weight. And they don't have many heavy guys. But he's one of their heaviest. So yeah, no, I would agree. I think he's a guy that could play a little more physical. And again, like, I just think overall, like, they need to mature. Their game needs to mature a little bit. And that's where I think Rukanakis can help them a lot if he's able to get back in the lineup, because he's one of the only 03s there. Like, there's not a lot of those guys. Harvey's an 03. He's a senior. A junior. Owen McLaughlin's an 03. He's a senior. And then Rukanakis is an 03 who's a sophomore. Those are the only 03s at forward on the roster. Mick Frechette is a 03 defenseman. Those are their oldest players. Skaters. Max Lacroix is a backup goaltender who's an 03 as well. But those are their oldest players. So,
I know you said you hit on them not working or needing to get better at working harder away from the puck. One guy who you actually mentioned this to me about in both games is the defenseman Cole Hudson.
Yeah, he had made some, especially on Friday. I thought he was really good on Saturday.
He was really good on Saturday, yeah.
He was really good on
Friday,
Saturday. There were some plays on Friday night, though, where it was, again, I would say BU's game overall needs to mature, and I think Hudson's game is part of that. I think it was Merrimack's second goal on Friday. He had turned the puck over at the red line and then just kind of didn't back check. Just kind of watched the guy go back in and score. Turned the puck over. I think it was either at the red line or in between the blue line and red line, whatever it was. But again, like, that's and I think he's someone that can improve in the D zone. He probably knows that too. Look, he's the type of player, and I think a lot of guys fall into this. I think Lane fell into this too his freshman year and needed to improve upon it as a sophomore. He's so good with the puck. He's on another planet with the puck and a stick.
Insane.
He's on another planet with the puck and a stick.
I think he put it between a guy's legs over the weekend in both games combined, probably like 8 or 9 times.
It's crazy. Yeah. And Lane was the same way. But they both they're so similar, right? I think Cole might actually, with the puck, might be better. But they were both, I think, coming into college, they were in situations where, like, let's face it, they didn't have to defend much growing up. Whether we're talking juniors, youth hockey, whatever it is, they were probably never asked to defend real hard because they were so good with the puck on their stick. But as you get older and as you move up the developmental pyramid, you need to add different elements to your game. And I think Lane added more of that element his sophomore year. I think they're looking for Cole's game to grow in a similar direction, like in a similar manner as a sophomore. And you saw signs of it. Like, I thought his game grew a ton just from Friday to Saturday. I didn't think, and I know it's weird. He scored the overtime winner on Friday night. I didn't think he played great on Friday. I thought he was exceptional on Saturday.
He was very good on Saturday.
I thought he was exceptional on Saturday.
Merrimack was being much more physical with him. You could tell.
I think that's what they wanted.
Anybody else? Yeah.
They wanted to get the puck behind.
He was the best player on the ice when he was on the ice.
He was on another planet Saturday night. There was no question. So, what else we got?
There have been some notable injuries earlier in the season. Cole Iserman is out for BU. Aiden Fink is out for Penn State, and that's just to name a few. What has brought on so many early season injuries? It's
kind of wild, isn't it? Yeah, I think there's another one too that we just found out about the end of last week. I'm drawing a blank on who it was. It was Western Michigan. Vasanainen, the defenseman, the sophomore defenseman from Western, who was drafted by Pittsburgh. He's a Pittsburgh draft pick. At 26 points last year as a freshman defenseman. But yeah, it is kind of wild that we've had so many of these. I don't think it's anything other than coincidence, frankly. Like, again, I just think strength and conditioning is better today than it's ever been, especially with the guys we're talking about. Boston University, a guy at Penn State, their recovery facilities and strength and conditioning facilities are among the best in the country. I don't think it has anything to do with that. I think in some cases, when you see teams that really struggle with injuries over the course of a season, sometimes I think it is that. Like, if you're a lower level or a program that has lower level facilities as far as strength and conditioning and recovery, yeah, I think that plays a big role. in some of those teams, especially if there's like a run of injuries where you have a team that has like 5 or 6 injuries at one time. It's generally the ones that don't have very good strength and conditioning facilities and don't have very good recovery facilities because they can't manage those injuries very well. That's not the case at BU and Penn State, obviously. So I think it's more coincidence and just than anything else. It is kind of crazy though, because you're right. We've had some big names miss time early. Hopefully they're all back in March because that's what makes for the best tournament. But I don't think it's anything more than just coincidence.
When I'm laying in bed, I like to watch videos on YouTube. I think Spit and Chicklets does a lot of them.
Chicklets University?
Yeah, Chicklets University.
Yep.
They'll do like facility tours.
Yep.
And I watched one on BU, and they by far have, if not the nicest, top 3 nicest facilities in the country.
It's up there
from what I've seen from those videos.
No, they're all very similar.
They have it. It's really nice.
And again, like, I want people to understand when I talk about facilities, I'm not talking about the arena. None of the players really care about the arena. Like, you want to know why? Because they don't want to be sitting in it watching games. All they care about, I think, from an arena standpoint is, how's the atmosphere?
Yeah.
Is the atmosphere good? Great. Awesome. That's what a player wants to play in front of. They don't care if it has luxury suites or a club or a nice scoreboard or anything like that. Yeah, all that stuff's great for fan experience, and I'm not saying that that's not important, but I don't think it helps you get players or win games. I think what helps you get players in recruiting, which will then ultimately help you win games, is those strength and conditioning facilities, the recovery facilities, and player lounges, locker rooms, stuff like that. That's where the players spend their time. So that's where schools should be investing. And BU has done that. Penn State has done that. Michigan State has done that. Maine is doing it right now. I think theirs just reopened. I can show you a video on theirs.
Are we allowed to name schools that have not done that?
We won't do it today.
Okay.
There's a lot. But yeah, we won't do it today. You know,
Yeah.
if you're a fan of a school that is not, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where schools should be investing their money, and that's where that stuff pays off. That's why, like with Iserman and Fink in particular, it's coincidence. I think. I don't think it's anything other than that. So.
Up next, how close are we to being able to pay attention to the NPI instead of polls for rankings?
Well, you don't have to pay attention to polls at all.
Nope.
I've said that before. Yeah, that's. Especially once we can really start to focus on the NPI, the pairwise. The polls, they're good for discussion points. Again, like, it shocks me how many people don't know this. They don't mean anything. So, like, when it inevitably comes up every year where someone will be like, how did this team not make the tournament? They're ranked 12th, and the other team that did make the tournament is ranked 14th. It's because the polls do not matter. They are there, they're a promotional tool. I guess they're fine early in the year, but again, like I sometimes I look at them and I'm like, are people watching the same games as me? Because there's no way some of these teams should be ranked where they are. But yeah, we are really close, to answer the question, we're really close to being able to pay attention to the NPI, at least to track its movement. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean anything yet. It doesn't until the tournament needs to be selected. But we're very close to being able to track movement. I usually do that right after Thanksgiving, or either right before or right after Thanksgiving. This year's Thanksgiving, next week's the 17th. So I may start to look at it on the week of the 24th, is probably when I'll first publish something. If you remember last year, I kind of tracked it week to week. I'll do something similar. Right now, there's not a big difference between the NPI and the pairwise. There's some flips here and there, but like, if you looked at last year's pairwise formula applied to this season, the top 5 teams in the NPI right now are the same as the top 5 teams in the pairwise. So there's a difference in some order, but it's still relatively the same. And I think you're going to see that over the course of the year. That doesn't mean that there's not volatility. I looked this up earlier today. Last year, on November 25th, there were 14 teams that were in position to qualify as an at-large team to the NCAA tournament. I took out an auto bid for the CCHA and Atlantic Hockey because they were well below that cut line at that point in time. Of the 14 teams that were in position to qualify for the tournament on November 25th, 10 of them wound up qualifying for the tournament in March. And the only ones that didn't, like, there were obviously 4 of them. Like, St. Cloud State was one of them. And St. Cloud State lost their goaltender, Isaac Posh, in the middle of last year, and their season just kind of fell off a cliff. So there were reasons for some of those as well, and some of them didn't miss by much. Like UMass Lowell didn't miss by much. I think they finished 17th. So yeah, we're very close. I'll probably start tracking it weekly and tracking the movement as of the 24th, which is in 2 weeks. That means the Ivy League schools. You need to wait till they get about 7 or 8 games on their schedule, and we're a couple of weeks away from that. But we're very close. We're very close.
Minnesota swept Notre Dame. Are they now a contender or a pretender after a slow start? Are they a young team trying to find an identity, or are there issues with their roster?
This may be a cop-out, but I think it's both. I think that most of their younger players, particularly their sophomores, are starting to come on. They've got some good freshmen in there as well. Their goaltending was just okay to start the year. I think it's getting better. Luca DePasqua, who was a transfer from Michigan State, was really good over the weekend against Notre Dame. I think he's their number one. I think he will end up being their number one, and I think he's going to be just fine. He's up to a .926 save percentage in the year. I think that's about what he'll be. So they've got some pretty good young players, but they're not at the level of Michigan's really good young players or Michigan State's or Penn State's. So at least depth-wise, like they've got some players that are of that caliber, but not enough of them. So I would think it's a little bit of both. I think they are a young team trying to find an identity. I also don't think that their roster is as good as at least those 3 other teams in their conference. I would even put Wisconsin in that category. I think they're better than Ohio State. I think they're better than Notre Dame from a roster standpoint, but that might be it. So, I think that's where things stand with Minnesota right now. The beginning of the year, I had Michigan, Penn State, and Minnesota State, and Michigan, Penn State, and Michigan State all ahead of Minnesota. I had Wisconsin just behind them. I would flip that now. Wisconsin's better. So I do think it's a little bit of both. I think their roster needs to get better, but I think their roster will improve if those younger players can start to come around, especially if they start to come around a little more quickly. But I think it's a little bit of both.
Former BU coach Jack Parker was put into the Hall of Fame over the weekend. Do you have any good stories covering Jack Parker?
I've got several. Yeah. So he was, and I didn't cover him nearly as closely as the people that covered BU on a daily basis, but covering Hockey East and covering college hockey nationally, I was around him enough. And there was I get some really good stories. One was, I don't remember.
Have I heard this story?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't remember. He had some legendary press conferences. I wasn't here for that one. There was one that's famous, though, that I know a lot of people that covered BU tell. There was a game they played against Providence. BU was called for 12 penalties. Providence was called for 6. And his press conference after the game was it was like a scrum outside the locker room. I think the game was at Providence. And they asked him for an opening statement, and he said the story of the game was 12-6. That's it. That's the game. That's all I got. And turned around and walked away. And as he was walking away, the media there was like, well, can we grab a couple of players? And they were asking Brian Kelly, who was their media relations guy at the time, can we grab a couple of players? What can we do? And he turned around and went, nope, you can't. And that was it. So he had this reputation of being really kind of rough around the edges. But I'll be honest with you, like when I only had maybe 2 or 3 one-on-one conversations with him. One was at a media day for Hockey East, and then a couple of others after games when there just wasn't a lot of us there. Anything but, like, he would sit and talk. He'll sit and still will. He'll sit, I'm sure, and talk hockey with you all day long because he just loves talking about it. One I remember, this is the one that was at a Hockey East media day in 2011. It was the 2011-2012 season. And I was talking with him one-on-one. I don't even remember what the conversation was about, but I remember he went out of his way to talk about Merrimack, who had the year before gone to the NCAA tournament and lost to Notre Dame in the first round and played BC in the Hockey East championship game. And he went out of his way to say to me, it's a shame that Merrimack team last year didn't win the national championship because they should have. That was the best team we played all year. That team should have won the national championship, and that would have been great for that program, and it would have been great for our league. And at the time, there were a lot of coaches that I think would want to present themselves as like, I think that's what's best for our league, meaning Hockey East. I think that's what's best for the game. I don't know that many coaches meant it, and that's okay. Like, there were a lot of coaches that would say that, but I don't think they actually meant it or believed it. But they weren't being paid by Hockey East to do what's best for the league. They were being paid by their school to do what's best for their school. So I don't really blame them. But he was one of the guys that when he said, like, I thought this would be great for the game, or I thought this would be great for our league, he really meant it. And I think he really looked out for things like that. So that was the side of Jack Parker that I don't think a lot of people realize. Like, he really wanted to see what was best for Hockey East, not just BU, because he cared about it. He was a guy that, he was also a guy, this goes back to when I was a student at Merrimack, you'll love this.
Oh, boy.
Everyone thinks that the ice at Lawler is smaller than regulation.
Really? I mean, I can see
people think it all the time.
but
And it's not.
Yeah.
If you measure it, it's 200 by 85, which is the same size as an NHL sheet. What is smaller, I think, and I've never proven this, are the corners. I think the corners are tighter.
I can see
they're
that,
not
actually.
as wide,
Yeah.
which makes the rink itself feel
Looks
smaller.
and-
I was a student. I'm going to guess this was 2003 or 2004. I don't know which year, but somewhere around there. It would have been early in the season because you'll know why in a second. We were playing BU at home, and before the game, Jack Parker was on the ice with someone, I don't know if it was a staff member at BU or equipment manager or whatever, with a tape measure.
Oh, boy.
Measuring the zones, the offensive zones on each side of the ice, because he believed that they were too small and they were not, and they were out of alignment or they were too small, like not against the rules.
Was he measuring it like from blue line to goal line?
Blue line to either goal line or blue line to the end wall. I don't remember which. You know what? I think what it was. I think he was actually measuring from the blue line to the top of the circles. He wasn't actually doing the measuring. Like, he was standing on the bench while like BU staff was doing the measuring. And as it turned out, he was right.
Really?
Like, when they painted the ice that year, the zones were off somehow. So at Christmas break, Merrimack had to take their ice out and repaint it and put in new ice because it got reported to Hockey East like, hey, this ice is out of regulation. And
no way.
so the ice surface itself was the right size, but they painted it incorrectly. So they had to repaint the lines. And that was funny. But like, again, like, so that's where I think he developed this reputation as being like a guy that was kind of rough around the edges. But he was also a guy, you'll know some of this story, and I don't know the year. He had a grandson that was playing at Andover High School in Andover, Massachusetts, and it was Shane LaChance, who ended up going to play at BU later on. So Shane was playing at Andover High for the same year that their coaching staff got put on suspension for supposedly something that happened on a road game. I think like the parents accused the coaching staff of not feeding the kids after a game or something like that on the bus. In reality, it was a stupid situation where like the superintendent of the school was mad that his kid didn't make varsity and was making the coaches' lives a living hell for the entire year. It was a sad situation. It's just stuff like that happens in sports sometimes, unfortunately, when parents get involved, especially parents with power get involved. So they were down a coaching staff for like a couple of weeks, and Jack Parker had already retired at this point, and I was still working at the Eagle Tribune. Not full time, but I was.
Is this when Shane LaChance was playing at Andover?
He was playing at Andover High.
Okay.
Yeah. And
so let me just get this straight: the Andover High parents,
one parent in particular, who was also the superintendent of the schools,
yeah,
was mad that his kid didn't make varsity and was looking for any excuse to fire the coaches there. Yeah,
that's not good.
No, it was stupid, and it was a shame. But anyway, they got put on leave during a quote unquote investigation, which they were cleared for, by the way. But during that leave, they were kind of scrambling, and he never went on the bench during a game because I don't think he wanted people to know. But I believe that Jack Parker went out of his way to help that team over those couple of weeks. I think he was there to help run practices. I think he was there during games maybe not on the bench, but was given pointers from what he saw up in the stands. Like that to me is the type of guy that Jack Parker is, and didn't want anybody to know, because I think the Tribune wanted to do a story on it at the time, and he was like, "Hey, that's not why I'm here. Like I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this to help these kids out because it's a shame what's going on right now." So that's the stuff that I'll remember about Jack Parker. I'll remember the guy who said to me that like, "Hey, it's a shame Merrimack didn't win the national championship last year because they should have, and that would have been great for their program and great for our league." I'll remember the guy that helped out that Andover High team and wanted no one to know about it. I think the Tribune did end up doing a story at some point, but it was later on. It was after the year was over. He didn't want anybody to know during the season. But yeah, I think a lot of guys, like in his era, a lot of guys would say, "Oh, that's great for our league," but they didn't really mean it. They weren't always looking at what was best for the league, but he was. Like I actually think he was, which made him pretty rare. So yeah, he was a fun guy to coach, fun guy to cover. And I didn't do it every day, but I don't have as many good stories as probably the people that covered BU day to day.
Something that has nothing to do with college hockey, but has something to do with hockey.
Okay, let's go.
Joe Thornton was put in the Hall of Fame over the weekend.
With Jack Parker. That's right.
Yeah. He was your favorite player growing up.
He was.
What is your best Joe Thornton memory?
Yeah, he was my favorite player growing up. In fact, turn around. What's hanging behind you? Tell the people.
A signed Boston Bruins Joe Thornton jersey.
With which number?
Number 6.
Yeah, also known as the OG, the original. Joe Thornton was my favorite player growing up. He was drafted. So my dad, at that point, when he was drafted, I think that was the first year that he had season tickets for the Bruins. Or no, I think the first year was the year before, where they were the worst team in the league and ended up with the number 1 pick. And then he had them all the way through 2010, which is kind of funny because they won the Cup in 2011. The year they won the Cup was the first year that he gave up the tickets.
I bet he was so thrilled about that.
It was tough. There were a lot of games that had gone unused, and they were expensive tickets. So, but in any event, yeah. So that was like Thornton became my favorite player pretty quickly because he was the number 1 overall pick, and we were going to games all the time. I remember being devastated the night that they traded him and thinking that it was like, what are we doing? And then finding out later on that they didn't even shop him, that Mike O'Connell didn't even shop him. Like Bob McKenzie, I think, had that story that like they just basically came to terms with the Sharks. Bunch of GMs didn't even know he was available. I remember him. Oh, the 04 playoffs. I still get aggravated and my stomach gets in knots about the 04 playoff when he didn't have any points in 7 games against the Canadians. I think they won the President's Trophy that year. If they didn't, they were still. I think they were the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. I don't know if they won the President's Trophy, but that 04 Bruins team was really good. And then they went to the playoffs against Montreal and lost in 7 games. Thornton didn't have a point, and he was getting hammered by the media out here, like just absolutely hammered. And then it came out afterwards he was playing either with a broken rib or like torn rib cartilage or something. Like the guy could barely breathe and still went out there and played 7 games, which was amazing, but he still got hammered for it. And I thought that there were certain writers out here that were so unfair to that guy. Especially always using that as the example, like, oh, he choked in the playoffs one time, and he was playing with ribs that he should never have been playing with. So that those things kind of stand out. Just like the biggest, because he was my favorite player as a kid. Like the stuff that, like, man, it shouldn't have happened the way that it did. He shouldn't have been getting hammered for that 04 playoff run. He never should have been traded. And who knows what would have happened? Like, could he have been the centerpiece of that 2011 Cup team? And then he would have won a Cup. Like, the guy should have won a Cup. He's arguably one of the best centers, certainly of his generation. I mean, the guy just went in the Hall of Fame. But he was just old school. I remember he fought – who did he fight? He had a fight his first year. Oh, it was Lindros. And Eric Lindros, like, messed him up. But I remember, like, how impressed I was, even as a kid, being like, kid's 18 or 19 years old, and Eric Lindros is a monster. And, like, he went after Lindros. Lindros cross-checked him after a face-off, and he went right after him. And I was like, that's kind of was the first time I was like, I like this guy. You can imagine me at 13 years old being like, I like this guy. I like this guy that's just big, burly guy trying to fight people, but he could score. So, yeah, I was always a big Joe Thornton fan. In fact, look I got the signed jersey there. There's a signed photo over here.
Oh, there is.
Yeah.
Nothing else. I don't see anything else.
I got a couple more in my office.
Do you?
Yeah, I got another signed photo in my office. His brother was my history teacher in high school.
What?
I told you that. Didn't you know that?
Joe Thornton's brother?
Yes.
You didn't tell me that.
You didn't know that?
No.
Yeah, Joe Thornton's brother for 2 years was my history teacher.
Is that the same one that threw a stapler at you?
No. That was middle school.
Oh,
that was Mr. A. No, Joe Thornton's brother was a history teacher at Malden Catholic. He was my history teacher for 2 years in a row.
Did you ever get to meet Joe Thornton because of it?
Yes,
actually,
quite a few times. That's how you think I got the jersey signed?
I don't know. I used to be a big Jack Eichel fan.
Yes,
I'm still a fan of him now, but I still don't know if I believe this. Mimi said that she knew someone who knew him.
Yep.
And got me a signed photo from him. Is that really from him?
It is, yeah.
Is it?
Oh, yeah. You can match up the signature. It absolutely is.
Yeah. 'Cause, like, I have it hanging in my room. It says, "Happy birthday, Tyler," and then it's signed, and it's a photo of him.
I don't know what the connection there was either. I don't remember. But, yeah, it's legit. But you can ask Mom. Like, Mom used to come down with me because I would go, when we were at games, even after I was out of high school because I was dating your mother, we would go to games, and I knew where his brother's seats were because these were the same seats every game. And when I was in high school, he knew that we had season tickets, so he was like, "Oh, I sit, come and say hello. I sit in this section." So I would go over, and every once in a while, every few games, I'd go over and say hi. And after, like, I was in college, so I'd been out of high school a few years. He wasn't teaching at the school anymore, and we would go over and say hello. And very often, like when I wanted to get the jersey signed, there was an area downstairs where they would have family wait for players.
That's where I met Colin Delia.
So when you met,
game, right?
they did it upstairs. That you met on the concourse that night.
I thought it was down by the glass.
Yeah, but I'm saying downstairs, like down on the locker room level, is where they would have
it down there.
Yeah, so because we were with him, he'd be like, "Just come with me," and we wait down by the family area. And then when Joe would come out to see his brother, he would say, like, "Hey, this is one of my students. Can you sign his jersey for him?" So that's how all that started.
Was he a nice guy?
Joe Thornton?
Yeah,
he's a great guy.
I've only seen like videos of him. Like I saw his Hall of Fame speech.
Yeah, I know he was
a few hours ago.
He was a great guy. So yeah, that was it. In fact, I also did a research study. I don't remember what it was about. Again, I was in college, but his brother was my history teacher. Ended up leaving teaching and then went back to school. I think got a doctorate. I think from Boston University, and was doing his thesis or doing some sort of research project, and needed to like interview college and high school students as part of it, as like for a focus group, and ended up getting in touch with me, and I did that with him. Like I went to his apartment one night in Boston. He lived in one of those brownstones, like one of the really nice brownstones on Comm Ave.
Yeah.
And we went there, and like we got dinner. And he was interviewing me and like two other people. I don't even remember what the questions were about. But then it was over. Joe was playing for the Sharks at this point, and like the interview stuff was over. And he was like, "Well, it's 10:00. Let's put on the game." And like we hung out at his house and watched the Sharks play. I think the Sabres. This probably would have been like 2003, something like that. No, it would have been. I was in high school in 2003. It would have been. No, I was in college in 2003. So when did Joe get traded? 2004? He got traded at the beginning of the 2004-05 season. So I was probably towards the end of college. It was probably like 2005 or 2006.
Speaking of me liking Jack Eichel, I used to be also a big Alex Ovechkin guy.
Used to be?
I still am. Still a real big Alex Ovechkin guy. But when did you and Mom go to D.C.?
Oh.
Because I remember I forced you. I was like, if you come home without something for me that is related to Alex Ovechkin,
you were little.
Very mad.
Yeah, you were like 8. You were like 7 or 8 years old. It was a while ago.
I forget. Did I get a jersey or a shirt?
It was like a T-shirt jersey.
Was it? Yeah.
But we went in the middle of the summer. Like, I had to go down there for something work-related, and Mom came with me, and you guys stayed at home.
No, we stayed with Mimi.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You stayed with your grandparents.
Well, yeah.
And I didn't leave you alone at 8 years old at the house, no. I think people would have understood that you stayed with someone. But it was the middle of summer, and we couldn't find anything. Like, I ended up having to go to like a Dick's Sporting Goods, and
really,
yeah, like somewhere in Virginia, to find you an Ovechkin T-shirt.
I remember saying to you that I was going to be mad at you if you didn't bring home something Ovechkin.
Yep. In fact, it was just because the timing had worked out. It must have been July because we had gone and watched some of their development camp that year. We saw some of the Capitals development camp.
I love Ovechkin. He's a funny guy.
Yeah.
Remember when I think it was like an all-star draft or whatever? Like the last pick got a car. Have you ever seen that?
I remember it. You're gonna remember it more than me.
He wanted to be picked last so bad because he wanted a car, and then Patrick Kane, I think, took him second to last. He didn't want to leave the room. He was so mad.
That's funny. So is that all we got?
That is all we got.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for the rundown portion of the show. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back with Steve Metcalf in just a minute. Again, if you want to hear more of Tyler and I, you can subscribe to the College Hockey Rundown. It's the second podcast I do in addition to the CHN Insiders here with Adam. Tyler and I do this every week as well. So we'll be back in just a minute with hockey's Commissioner Steve Metcalf. Merrimack and BU scoreless here at the end of the first period. We're happy to be joined by the Commissioner of Hockey, Steve Metcalf. Thanks for joining us here at the first intermission tonight.
Well, thanks for having me, Mike.
It's kind of been a weird start to the year, I think, all around, right? With so many new faces and rosters turning over. But what do you make of the start of the year for hockey so far?
Well, disappointed that we haven't won more non-conference games, of course. I think we've got a competitive league, top to bottom. I think that's one thing that's shown, and I think everyone likes, competitive games. They're, more enjoyable generally, but of course, in my seat, you've got to get non-conference wins. We know it's all about the math and getting into the tournament at the end of the year, and we've certainly left a few on the table that we'd like to have back. We've got plenty of games ahead of us, so I think everyone in my seat all around the conference, all around the country, we're all looking at those games and kind of handicapping where we're going to be. And if I told you, I'd already get calls from other commissioners like, speculating how many teams they might get or how many teams we might get. I'm like, is it a little early for that, isn't it?
It is, but it's funny. Like, this is when you, at least with the pairwise, this is when we could start to look at it. It was like Thanksgiving or so.
Yeah.
I don't know how much, as a league, you guys have dived into the differences between the NPI and the pairwise. I mean, do you think there's going to be any difference there?
I don't think there's going to be a lot of difference. I think, the simple way to describe it is just better math, and you're taking away some of the anomalies that could happen in the old system and the anomalies that the coaches just didn't think made any sense. So you've taken that away, and I think generally it's going to look, very, very similar. And I think it's going to prove to be a better way to do things.
And does this give the committee or the coaches more control? Like, there's easier ways to make changes, I think, or something like that with the NPI.
Yeah. So the new oversight committee, the men's ice hockey oversight committee, they can make tweaks, I think, without having to get another layer above them to make a decision. So I think that's good. So it'll be hockey people making those decisions. And there are a couple levers, that they can manipulate in the system, whether it be home away or what they're doing in overtime. And some of those tweaks, I think, have made a lot of sense. I heard your podcast last week, and I think you guys are right on about your assessment of those. And I'm someone that thinks the way it's set up right now with those tweaks and the 1.2 and the 0.8, not to get too mathy on everyone, I think is the right place to be.
Yeah. I wanted to talk to you about the Spengler Cup. That's something that is new this year, a team of college hockey players. I guess we can call it an all-star team, a select team going over to play in a tournament that's in Europe over the holidays. What was the genesis of that? How did that come about, and what's the process been like selecting that team?
Well, it was a multi-year process getting approved from the NCAA to be able to do it. And then we had to go over the Spengler Cup and get an invitation. So I went last year with Mike Sneef from College Hockey Inc. We went over there. We secured an invitation, long story short. We put together a coaching staff, Guy Godowski, Mike Souza, Jason Lammers. And so they've been, heavily involved in the selection of the players. We've had 4 NHL scouts that have been advising us, which has been super helpful. And so we're getting a lot of information. Everyone's talking to a lot of coaches. And, like you said, it's going to be an all-star team. I think it's really fun for the players. And some of the player reactions. I'm the one who the coach talks to the players and they invite him, and then I follow up with like an official like invitation, welcome, and send them some information. And I can just tell you they're so excited, and they're excited to play with all these other great players, and that's what's going to be really fun.
Is that something you think we'll see yearly too? Is that kind of the plan?
I'm hopeful that we go and have some success this year, first of all, and then I hope we'll get an invitation to come back and do it again every year. I hope.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to it. I'm actually really looking forward to seeing those games, and I think it should be good for college hockey in general.
Yeah. Thanks very much for having me.
Thanks again, Steve, for joining us. We'll be back with more in just a minute. Merrimack and BU scoreless here at the end of the first. All right, that's going to do it for the show this week. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Adam will be back next week. We'll be back with our regularly scheduled programming. But thanks to Tyler for filling in. Thanks to Steve Metcalf for his time as well on Saturday. And we'll talk to everybody next week. Enjoy the games.